Good afternoon, everyone. This is Laurie Meyer with Stamped Greetings, and I am here today with some amazing women who are part of a local stamp club. We've been meeting now for, I don't know how many years. I'm going to say somewhere around 12, 14, something like that. If you're ever interested in joining us, just let me know, and I'll be happy to give you the information. We have been, over the past several weeks, using a bundle. It's called Notes and Totes, and it is so much fun. I want to show you a couple of the projects that we've made. This is one that we're going to do today. I'll come back to this in just a minute. This is one that we made a couple weeks ago. It is featuring especially the dies in the set, and you'll see here it looks like a really cute little beach tote with a lot of beachy kinds of things added in, and even a fence and some background. We also have made a wonderful, fun pop-up note card that would be perfect for a gift card or whatever you would like to use. It actually pops up when you open the card. And this time, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And this has a very short story behind it, so I will make this quick. This is a card that I designed for a blog hop that I am going to be participating in later tonight. And the challenge was really, really unique. What we were asked to do was to come up with a design that was or is inspired by something hanging in our closet or an outfit that we see when we went shopping. Well, I actually have a shirt on that looks like this. And to me, that looked really similar to some of the patterns. I'll show you the pattern I'm going to use in the card that I'm making on this particular meeting. So this is kind of silly that I'm doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's the material on the right. Here's the paper on the left. And I thought that I would use some of the paper like this to create a really fun card. I'm absolutely obsessed with the Notes and Totes dies. And as I showed you just a minute ago, I made a couple that have the tote bag designed like this. And you saw that, a beach tote bag. But I've also seen several people make the totes so that they are more vertical, kind of shopping bags or even not briefcases, but really nice bags that are carried. And I thought I would make a design that included the vertical, smaller bags. And then I haven't done a slimline card for a while. So I've combined all of that together. And this is the type of card that we are going to make. I've done a lot of prepping, and I've actually put together a couple of the bags. We're going to do a little bit different design on the one that I'm going to do with you. So you may want to create along with me, but please don't get frustrated if you don't finish the card in the time that I'm putting it together. It will be something that you'll see very quickly the steps involved in getting the bags put together. So we're going to start from the beginning on this. And I am going to, purple is okay. I had a piece of blue. That's not great, but it's going to be better than the blue. I'm going to start from the beginning of this card. We are making a slimline card. And slimline cards are kind of fun because they're not all made to the same size. But I want to show you the kind of slimline card that is my favorite. I started with a regular piece. This is 11 by 8.5. So it's a full sheet of A2 cardstock. And I used thick basic white. I really wanted it to be nice and sturdy because when you look at the final card, there are some three-dimensional pieces and it just needs to support what's going to go on the front. And I cut the card into two pieces. So this piece is cut to 7.5 by 8.5. So if you put the cardstock into your paper trimmer and you put it in on the 11-inch side, you're going to cut that at 7.5. Then create the base of your card from that 7.5 piece, which means you're going to score at 3 3/4. All right. So you've got 7.5, 8.5. You score it at 3 3/4, and that's going to give you a really nice slimline card with a lot of room to create. What is also nice about this size of slimline card is it fits into a legal envelope. This is an A10 or a legal envelope, and it will fit in really well. In fact, if I just scooch it down, you'll see that there will be a little bit of area on either side. So you'll have plenty of room to get the card in, and then you can also see that there's plenty of room top and bottom. By the way, if you didn't know, US first class postage is going up sometime in July. It is going up from, believe it or not, 73 cents to 78 cents. So if you have not purchased your forever stamps just yet, I highly recommend that you do, because that's a little steep. All right, so we use the one side of that 8.5 by 11. Now we're going to use the other part. So again, this was 7.5 inches, and we cut that off. We made our card base. But what that leaves you with is a really, really nice piece that I'm going to use to make the focal point on the front of the card. And you may or may not have seen that when we were actually looking at the example, but you can see that there is a second piece of thick basic white that is on the front of the card. What is really, really nice about this, I think, is that since it is from the same piece of paper that you use to make the card base, it's going to be the same width. So there's no guessing as far as where it's going to go lengthwise. It is a little skinnier. It's 3 inches wide. So you're going to have this really 3.5 inches wide, excuse me. You're going to have a little bit of a border on either side. What I did, and you can do this now or you can do it later, whatever makes you happy, is I found a stamp that I wanted to use for my sentiment. And yes, I already knew kind of what I was going to do. So I picked a relatively short sentiment, short in length and also short in height, that I could put down on the middle bottom of this piece. And you'll see that I've also done it here. And I played around a little bit to make sure that the bags would fit, and they do. So you can be very confident that that will work out if that's what you choose to do. The other thing that I did, and this is completely optional, and it's a little hard to see on the camera, is on all sides, the two on the side and then the two on the top and the bottom, I did a couple of little score lines, and they're at 1/8 of an inch. That is totally optional. To be honest with you, I don't think that you really see them when the card is done. So you might want to skip that on the first pass and then figure out if that's something that you want to do when you make another one of these cards. I'm not going to attach this focal point yet. There's one thing that I want to add to the front of the card before I do that. So you're going to notice, I'm going to pull back the example, that on the bags, each bag has a different color cardstock that I used for the handle and also for the seams, the pieces that are going on the bottom and on the sides. So we have Strawberry Slush, this is Peach Pie, and this is Darling Duckling. And I wanted to bring those colors out in the back. I thought just leaving the card white in the back was not going to work for me. I really wanted to at least highlight those colors so that they would come out a little bit more. And all I did for that is I got the same color cardstock. I'm switching up the order here. And I cut one piece in each color. And again, remember, we started with a piece that's 8.5 inches long. So it's super easy to cut these from a regular piece of cardstock. These are only a 1/2 inch wide. So whatever color cardstock you've chosen to use for the outline of your bag, I recommend that you get an 8.5 inch piece, 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to put them in the order that I'm going to be doing for my second set. And you'll notice that it's in a slightly different order. And I just go from left, middle, and right. So you can choose if you want to have a different order in the background, you do what you want. The beauty of these pieces is you don't have to measure at all. And in fact, you don't even have to get crazy about where they're going to go on this piece. I'm just going to start mine down at about here. And I'm literally going to put some Tombow glue on the back. Don't need a lot, and put this strip on. I think this would also be very pretty with designer series paper, if that is something that you want to do. It just adds a little bit of color, and I'm putting one edge against the left side. And since these are 8.5 inches in length, and that focal point is 8.5 inches, then they line up perfectly, edge to edge. Then I know that my next bag, for the one that I'm making now, is going to be strawberry slush. So the first one was the peach pie, strawberry slush. And I'm just going to add some glue and then butt this one right up against that first one. And you could border with a darker color. I toyed with putting black on, for example, it would be before the peach pie, like right on the top, and then under what will be the darling duckling. And it was a little too much. I did monkey around with that, and it didn't quite work. But I like this because it's not overbearing. It's adding some really nice highlight, and it will bring out the colors that you're using for your bags. So I'm just going to push that right up against the one above. And now I have just a kind of a fun little piece to go on the front of the card. And at this point, I do recommend that you attach this piece to the front of your card. The reason is if you wait until you have the bags done, it's going to be a little bit harder to maneuver this piece. And we are simply going to be adding the bags to the front and doing some decoration. And just like the cardstock strips, the focal point is 8.5 inches wide. And I'm just going to put that right on the top. I'm just going to eyeball and try to get the same distance between the top piece and my card base on the top and bottom. It's going to be about 1/8 of an inch. And I'll just put that right on top. Now, if you don't know what sentiment you're going to put on right now, don't worry. You can stamp it on later if you like. You can also put it on a different piece of white cardstock or a different color cardstock and add it after you have created the bags and put them on the front. So if you don't have your sentiment at this point, don't worry about it. You will have many options and you can do that later if you choose. So I'm just looking top and bottom on both sides. And it's, again, very nice because all the lengths are lining up since they all started with 8.5. At this point, we have our background. We have a lot of room to create. And that is one of the reasons I really, really like Slimline cards. They're just fun. So I do have a confession to make, and that is that I was so excited when I looked at these Memories and More cards. These are the ones that are the mixed media florals, I believe is what they're called. Yep. And I thought, oh my goodness, they look like some of the tops that I have in my closet. And I started going through these and I started designing the card. And the card that I showed you before, here's my confession. These were made with Memories and More cards. Well, the problem is the Memories and More cards are no longer available. So what does one do when one makes a little screw up like that? What I did was I looked at the patterns that are in the Mixed Media Florals Designer Series paper because I wanted to make sure that I could make a card that has those patterns. And the two on the end on this are only in the Memories and More cards. So sorry about that, but I think you're going to like what we're going to do anyway. The one in the middle definitely is in the Designer Series paper. So what you need to do is either use Memory and More cards, Designer Series paper, whatever you would like, and you're going to use this die. We're going to cut off some of the parts and only use about that much of the die itself. The beauty of this is that you don't have to use a piece of paper that is this wide. You only need to have a piece of paper that's about 3 inches by 3 inches. You can definitely put your Designer Series paper. This is one of the patterns in the Designer Series paper. Coincidentally, it looks an awful lot like the shirt that I have on. And I made it about 3 inches wide and about 3 inches high. And I ran that through my die cutting machine. And obviously, I did not get the entire die because the paper wasn't wide enough to capture the die. That's fine. Because all I really need in order to make the vertical bag is a little bit of the side, not the entire side, like on the large tote. So once you have cut out your piece, it will look something like this. And I've already folded where the score lines are because it's a little hard to see where those score lines are if you're not looking at it in person and you're looking at it on the camera. So if we look at it as, here's the tote bag is going to sit like this. You're going to have two sides. So you're going to go ahead and fold those in. The sides don't need to be the exact same width. Don't worry about that because you're not even going to see those when this is done. The bottom has two parts in the die. You have this little tag on the side, and you also have a piece that will fold up on the bottom. We're going to do some surgery to this because we do not need the entire piece. In fact, it will get in our way. So let me show you what you're going to do. This little tag down here, fold that, get it nice and burnished so you can see where that fold line is, that score line. And you are simply going to cut that off. And that means when you're done, you're going to have these two pieces. You don't need this. So you can check that. I don't really know what that would be used for. I'm sure there's a great purpose, but I'm trying to be frugal, not overly frugal, and also try to have a sort of clean craft room. So I will end up trashing that. Then I'm going to miter these corners because I will be folding them and I don't want them to interfere with the side. So this is the bottom. This is that flap. It's a rectangle. And all I'm going to do is miter off and you don't need to be perfect. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to miter some of that off so that when I fold it, it's not getting in the way of the side. I like to turn mine over. I'm right-handed, and I'm going to do the same on this side. So here's where we end up. And really what we've done is we've taken a little sort of triangle out of each of the sides of the bottom, and we've also cut off the little flap at the bottom. And that's what you're going to do for each of the bags that you're going to make. Then this is where you are going to have so many ideas and so much fun figuring out what you would like to do with your bag, because the possibilities are truly, truly endless. I'm going to get out a couple of the dies here, and I will be using them along the way, but I want to explain what they are, or at least what some purposes of them are. And if you have this set, I'm sure you have already just been amazed at the many different dies that come with the set. There's so much you can do with these, and they're really, really a lot of fun. So let's talk about these for a second. On each of the bags, if I bring this back, we have sides, we have a bottom. That comes from this die, and it cuts everything out one pass. So you get two sides and one bottom. For this, I am going to use the peach pie for my sides and bottom. So I'm going to get those pieces out. I love this color combination. I think it is really soft and pretty, and that comes from that die. I'm going to need a handle, and there are choices for the handle. You can use the handle that looks like this. You can use the handle that looks like this. And you will see on the example some of the ways that they can be used. Obviously, this is the die for the handle for the middle. This is the die for both of the sides. So in this one, I turn the handle like that. On this one, I turn the handle the other way. So again, you're going to have a whole mess of options. Now, what I'm going to do on the card that I'm making now is I'm going to add some things that I did not put on this sample. And I'm going to bring out two of the bags that I've already put together for the second card, and then we will make the third one together. So this bag is going to go in the middle of this card. And give you a little sneak peek, it's going to end up looking something like that. And it has a couple more dies than I used on the sample that I just showed you. We're going to make a pocket and make a two-tone pocket. I'll show you how to do that. And we're also going to use these little dies, which make triangles for many different uses, and also some really cool kind of hardware pieces, or you can make them look like leather. And they're little pieces. They look like, here's one of the triangles, and here is one of the pieces that looks like hardware. And what's nice is you get two of those dies, so you can make multiples at the same time. So those are the dies that I'm going to use, and I'm going to create the third bag. These are the two that I've already made. They look a little different than the ones on the initial card, and we'll do sort of contrast and comparisons in a couple minutes. But let's go ahead and make this bag. Okay, what I did, and you may or may not want to do this, you may find some things that you prefer to do, is this is the inside, this is the bottom. I just adhered that piece, this is the one that we mitered, I'm going to just adhere that little flap directly onto the inside of the bag. And I'm using Tombow to do that. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, and it's going to get that bottom piece out of the way. If you prefer to leave that open, that's fine. It will not harm anything. And you can put your finished bag on the front of the card without a problem. To me, what it does is it also gives me a visual of where the bottom of that bag is, which comes in handy when we add the sides and the bottom pieces. Now, if you have reversible tweezers, these are ones that you squeeze to open and you let alone to hold closed. I do recommend these. If you don't have these, don't worry. You can definitely still put the pieces on. This just makes it a little bit easier for me. So what I also recommend is if you're going to put in on both the sides and the bottoms, start with the sides, because then you can put the bottom over the side piece and it will just look much more finished. Because I've glued down that bottom piece, that bottom flap, I can see the bottom of my card or the bag very easily, so I know where this side piece needs to go. And then I can just fold the flap backwards and I can see the edge. And that will allow me to get the piece very, very close to where I want it to be. So we've got one side on. I'm going to do the same for the other. These are also fun. The seams, the finishing pieces, they look really nice if you have complimentary designer series paper. And you know, when you cut the designer series paper, like the seams will look really pretty with this color as well. It would just give it a little bit of a pop. So, you know, challenge yourself. Look at the pieces that you're dealing with when you choose your designer series papers. I think you'll be excited and really happy with some of the combinations that are just natural when you cut them. You can use the backs and the fronts. All right, so we have our sides on. We're going to put our bottom on. The cards that we have been making, I have in the past done a score line right at this kind of point and just scored it up. On this kind of card, I am not going to do that. And the reason is I want the edges to look like they've been folded over. It gives it a little bit more height. So you'll notice that I did not score these corners. I am going to fold them, and it's going to make them look, I think, a little bit more natural because we are intentionally making these kind of pop up and giving them some dimension. When I put the glue on this piece, I'm not going to go past that little point on the bottom. I'm going to do that separately in just a second. And don't want an awful lot of glue. Try and spread that out a little bit. And again, because I folded the bottom of the piece for the bag, I know where the bottom is. I'm going to just plop that on and then line up and hold that for a second. I can check the back and do my best to get that about as even as I can, and just hold that as well. And obviously you don't need to put all these parts on. If you just want to put the sides on, or if you just want to put the bottom on, it's up to you. There's so many different styles that you can choose to make. I'll just give that a little bit of a burnish. And then for these, like I said, I'm not scoring this. I'm just going to bend that corner over. And it will look pretty natural. I'm going to do that over on this side as well. Just bend that around. and then unbend it with a dot of glue. Hold that down. This will give it a really good firm adhesive. You could use tear and tape if you want on this as well. I don't recommend glue dots. I don't think they are strong enough to hold that bend. I've tried a couple and ended up swearing at them, and that didn't help at all, but made me feel better. All right. So I'm going to bring back in the original card in just a second, the one that I showed you at the beginning, which is this one. And you'll see that other than the handle, and I'm going to use a different handle on this one, we're pretty much at this point, right? We've got the bag, we've got the sides, and I think these are super cute. I really, really do. And to me, these ones looked more like shopping bags. And I wanted them to look like shopping bags. Like I had gone to 3 different stores and purchased gifts from each store and had wrapped them. So what I did for this one is I tucked in some tissue paper. And the way I did that, I'm not going to do it on this card, but I want to show you how I did it. I just took a piece of tissue paper, just like you normally would for any gift, and I folded it, not super, super fancy. And then I brought it to the inside of the card or the bag and figured out about what height I wanted it, and I taped it down. So you can definitely do that, and you can make the bags look like gift bags. These I want to look a little bit more sophisticated. So what I'm doing is rather than putting in the tissue paper, I am embellishing the front a little bit more. So I'm adding pockets. I'm going to put all the handles on the front of these bags. You'll notice on the sample that these handles went inside the bags, the ones on the end, and the one in the middle had the handle on the outside. But we're going to change it up a little bit and make this a little more, I don't know, sophisticated. We'll call it sophisticated. So I've done 2 of these, and I'll show you the third one. And I'll use a lot of the same elements that I did on the first. So I've already cut out my handle, and I'm going to do it in the opposite direction of the one that will be going on the right, which means that it will be in this orientation. And I know from what I've done on the sample card that I have plenty of room if I want to put the handle something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And again, using my reversible tweezers just so I have a second pair of hands here. And my Tombow. And then eyeballing it. This is where you just kind of wing it and figure out where you want it to go. And that's pretty okay, I guess. And look at it sort of straight on. And there's my handle. I thought having the handle on the outside allowed me to do a little bit more decoration. And the designs on these bags, the actual designer series paper design versus the Memories and More, allow you to put more embellishments on this as well. Now let's talk about the pocket. So we've used these, get these out of the way. And these are the dies we haven't yet really played around with. When you cut out the pocket with this die, this is what you get. You get a really cool piece that has a lot of stitching all the way around, and then it looks like it has a flap. This could also be used as an envelope if you wanted to on another kind of card. That would be kind of cute. But notice when I made the pocket here, it's an awful lot shorter than the pocket from here, and it's two-tone. I wanted it to look like the part that lifts up that you would use to actually get in is made out of leather. And that's why I used pecan pie to cut out one of the dies, and then the other one I'm going to match the color on the cardstock. And I want the top to be that leather. So I am going to use my paper trimmer, not my paper snips, excuse me, and I'm just going to cut right below. We've done this on the other cards that we made as well. So right below that stitched line. But if I put these two together just to show you the size of what we'll end up, because we're going to cut this one off too, it's too big. It looks too big to put on that. So I still need to make what's left shorter, but I'm going to use this color. So I'm going to do the same thing over here and cut this off. I'm being careful cutting this because I will also use this on another card and have the flap be peach pie color rather than the pecan pie. So I really want this to be short. I want it to be about that big. And it will tuck in there really nicely and it will still look like a really cute little pocket, which means I need to trim. And all I'm going to do is literally cut it and get rid of the top part. It doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to add this piece right on top. All right, so that's where we're going. That's where we're going to end up. And it's just a cool little trick that you can use to make your pocket whatever size you want it to be, and it will still fit on the card. And then I'm just going to add the pecan pie piece on the top. And if I put my fingers on the side, that's going to help me make sure that it's lined up on the side. Before the glue dries, I'm just going to make sure that that will fit, and it will fit fine. So that's going to be my little pocket. And I'm just going to add that directly onto the front of the card, or the front of the bag. I keep calling the bag the card. I don't know why. And I really like these tweezers because they allow me to hold the piece over where I'm going to put it and try to align where I want it to go. And I'm trying to get the spacing on my left side, top and bottom, about the same. And then I can turn it. I always turn things if I'm trying to get them squared so that regardless of what way I am looking at the piece, it looks like it's lining up against the side or the bottom. And it's going to dry pretty quick. So there we go. So now we have this cool bag that has a nice little pocket, and we still have some things that we can add if we want to. So I'm going to do a little bit of fun decorating on here. And I'm going to put in a faux piece of leather kind of up at the top. And obviously I used this die that cuts out the triangle and then the piece that could be hardware. Gonna put a teeny, teeny, teeny bit of glue and just get that kind of in the middle. Put that on the top. And I also have one of the small pieces. This is the other end of the die. It's this little part, which I think is just stinking adorable. And I'm going to put that on the bottom. So it looks like a little latch right on the bottom of that pocket. This is a very small piece, so you don't need much. If you do choose to use a glue dot, you will probably fold the glue dot a little bit. I think even a normal size glue dot will be a little too big. And what you can also do with these tweezers is you can move the pieces around and just get them straight if they cooperate. Okay. So here we have just a very, very fun, sort of sophisticated bag. So that's going to do it with the dies. And the last pieces that we're going to do, I'm going to embellish this a little bit more. I'm going to put a couple of little jewels on here. The jewels that I'm going to use are the in color flat pearls. And I've already put some of those on the bags that I finished. So on this one, this is the strawberry slush one. Up at the top on that piece of faux leather, I added one of the smallest strawberry slush flat pearls. And then over on this one, way down at the bottom on the area where we have the little latch, I put one of this is a Secret Sea flat pearl. It just adds a little kind of fun to it. I'm going to, because I like balance, I'm going to go ahead and put one over on the latch on the small. And I think for that, I will use the Timid Tiger. It'll be tone on tone, kind of. This is peach pie. So I'm going to get a small Timid Tiger and put that right in the middle. And I think that's going to do it for those bags. I will add a little bit more embellishment, but that will come after we put the bags on. So I'm going to get these pieces out of the way. We don't need these. Now comes the time when I'm going to add these bags to the front of the card. And to do that, I'm going to use dimensionals. I'm going to start with the middle bag. And that is going to allow me to get it kind of centered and also give me the height that I want to have. So here's my suggestion. Use the regular size dimensionals. When you put them on your pieces, put them in the area that will not obstruct the flaps that are folding in. So if I hold this down, I don't want to get these flaps where the dimensionals are going to go. The reason is I want those flaps to literally open when I put this on the card. It will make it look much more realistic. And you can see I'm putting 4 dimensionals, and I did not get them near those flaps. I'm going to go ahead and take off the wax paper. And one more time, I'm going to use these tweezers. Don't really have to, but it comes in handy for me. And then coincidentally, the happy birthday that I used, and by the way, that happy birthday that I found came from All Zipped Up. It is a really cute set. We've made some cards using the dies, especially from that bundle. But it is about the length of the bag. So I am just going to center the bag, and when I'm happy with where it is, I'm going to look at that straight on, and then I'm going to push down. and make sure that each of those 4 dimensionals is holding the bag. What that allows to happen is that the sides are still going to pop up, so it still has a really nice 3-dimensional kind of view. And it also gives me the center of how I want to do this. And I think I'm going to try something a little different on this one. As you can see, the 2 on the first card are leaning. They're tilted. One's going to the left, one's going to the right. These I think I'm going to put on so that they are straight. And I'm going to do my best to get them at about the same distance. So again, I'm going to flip this one over. I love these ladybugs. This was a Memory and More card, but it has the same pattern as the paper. So I did confess to you. You will be able to get the same patterns on the designer series paper. And I'm just pulling in those flaps to make sure that I don't get the dimensionals to hold them down. I want those to open. Take these off. I think this design, think about this for a Christmas card with Christmas presents and beautiful designer series paper. It would be absolutely fun. And what a great card for kids in your family. And you may need to hold those flaps down just a tad when you're putting this on. Just trying to get this kind of straight. We'll see how I did. Not too bad. And I'm going to go ahead and push that down. That looks kind of cute. All right, we're going to do the last of the 3. And the same thing. The tissue paper definitely, to me, adds the illusion of a gift. This could be a gift, but it's also maybe a little bit more sophisticated in a way. Either way is fun. All right. This can get a little tricky just because I am butting up against the one on the right. All right, so I want to get it about the same height, about the same distance. Before I commit to that, I'm just going to look at it and see. Not bad. So then I'll go ahead and press those down. So there we have 3 bags right in a row. We're going to look at the similarities and the differences, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more bling. But you can see these have a lot more sort of embellishments and design on the bags themselves with the pockets and the extra pieces. These were made from the Memories and More cards, so they have a little bit more design meant to look more like a shopping bag with the tissue paper. And then if you want to add a little bling, you definitely can. On the top, you'll see that I put in some of the Druzy adhesive backed embellishments. They're some of my favorites. Very, very fun. So I'll do the same over here. Gold and silver, I think as a combination, really draws the eye. And if you put an embellishment so that part of it is on the cardstock and part of it is on the white, so it draws your eye. It really brings you to taking a look at what it is that is being highlighted. And then I'm going to do kind of opposite. So here I'll put, I think I'll put the yellow. So we'll do a little yellow one up at the top. This is the Darling Duckling. Pulling in the yellow from both sides. Over here, I don't want to do an awful lot more. I think I'll pull in the strawberry slush. And on these, I'm also going to do an odd number, and then I'll just have one little guy hanging out down here. And we'll do an ode to secrecy. And I'll tuck that a little bit behind. I find if you put embellishments sort of at different heights on cards like this, it makes you look at everything. So if I had pulled these all up to the same height down here, your eye would have been drawn down to the bottom. And it's drawing everywhere on these cards. I hope you have enjoyed this. I really, really hope that if you haven't tried these Notes and Totes dies, that you'll give them a shot. They are so much fun. You know, this is one way to use them. Here's another that we already looked at. Here is another with a pop-up card. If you'd like to see how these were made, just go to my blog and you'll find them, and you'll see videos on how to put these together. And you'll also find links to the products that I used on these cards, if that is something that you would like to add to your stash. So enjoy. I would love to see what you make. And until next time, Inky hugs.